The disciples had many questions about what the world would be like, what their lives would be like if Jesus were alive. Thomas was not the only disciple questioning Jesus being alive. Some thought that he was a ghost, even when they had seen him. They had seen Jesus, but they had also seen their friend Lazarus resurrected by Jesus. But this was different. Who could resurrect God from the dead if God had died? They thought it might be easier to explain he was just a ghost. But Jesus was not going to let them believe a lie. In fact, believing this lie was making them scared. Jesus didn't want them to be afraid, so he said, "Feel me, I'm real." And not only like Thomas, the disciples also, he said, "Put your hand in the nail scars." But of course, he would pass the greatest "I'm not a ghost" test of all when he said, "Bring some food." Only he actually said it politely, "Do you have any food?" And they brought him some broiled fish and some honeycomb. You know, that basket of fish did not look too appetizing and kind of reminds me of a story. You see, there was a little boy who was working really hard on his schoolwork most of the day. He was doing reading, arithmetic, writing, and that's how he does it. When he'd pull his teeth back like that, reading, arithmetic, writing. And he was working hard all day at it, doing what his mom told him, trying to listen to what his teachers were telling him to do. He was stuck indoors most of the day, and he could not wait to get out and go fishing. So when it was time, he grabbed his pole and he went out. He walked across the field, through the woods, up the hill, down the hill, on the other side, over the rocks. And there it was, the perfect fishing spot. And boy, he started to reel them in, one after another. Just a great day. Seemed like the fish were biting. All he had was a pocket full of worms, and he used every last one. And every one he used caught a fish. And he had a string of fish from here to Mount Gilead. And so he pulled them fish on a line back, up, over the rocks, to the top of the hill, down the hill, through the woods. And about the time that he got to the field, well, he wasn't being too careful. Them fish, they were dragging on the ground. He had a lot. He couldn't carry them all. He was tired. Dragging them fish through the field, all of a sudden, something, ow, back of the neck, getting nabbed, getting bit. What is it? He started running. Ran all the way home. Got home, was crying, and his mom said, "Well, you've got bee stings all over the neck. You need to come here, honey. Let me pick those out." And she started picking out the bee stings. Well, that neck started swelling up, and that boy was crying. And she looked down, and lo and behold, there was fish. And on that fish, there was honey. And she said, honey, come here." And she gave him a hug, comforted him, and she said, "You brought me honey and fish." Oh. And he looked at his mom and he said, "Can I have a hamburger?" After these things, Jesus showed himself again to the disciples at the Sea of Tiberias, that is the Sea of Galilee. And in this way he showed himself. Simon Peter, Thomas, called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, and the sons of Zebedee and two others of his disciples went fishing together and caught nothing. But Jesus said, "Throw your nets on the other side of the boat, And in their frustration, they listened and did what Jesus told them, though they were fishermen. And when they obeyed the Lord, they caught so many fish, more than they ever did in their entire life. Just one of 153. And they celebrated greatly, for this was success to them. And Jesus was at the fire with some coals, preparing breakfast for his disciples. And when they had got to land, about 200 cubits, dragging the net of fish with them, they saw the fire and coals, and the fish that was laid on it, and the bread. And Jesus said, "Hey, bring some of the fish which you've just caught." And Simon Peter went up and dragged the net to land. And then Jesus, sitting by the fire, turned to Peter and asked him an important question. "Peter, do you love me?" And then he asked again, "Peter, do you love me?" And he said, "You know I do." And Jesus said, "Feed my lambs." So Peter, who had seen Jesus do amazing things even out on the water, Peter, who had walked out on the water with Jesus, Peter, who had seen Jesus coming to them in the storm, this same man who was a fisherman and knew about storms out at sea, when he saw Jesus out on the water, he said, "If it's you, Lord, let me come. Let me come out to you." And Jesus said, "It is I, come, Peter." And Peter found himself out there, walking on the water. And Jesus, who was coming to them to give comfort in the storm in the boat when the waves were splashing over, and came and saw Peter walking on the water. When Peter saw the waves, he got scared. And now Peter again was scared. And the first time when Peter got scared, Jesus saved him and pulled him back up out of the water. And now Peter, it seemed like he was scared and needed something to eat, needing something to do. He didn't know what to think. Is Jesus truly going to take care of me? Can Jesus truly make all things work out for good and protect me and even give me food? How about the fact that we can't catch any fish and we've been out here all night? Even everything we're trying to do doesn't seem to be working out. Well, maybe there's just one thing that was needed, one essential thing for Peter to do, and that was to obey, to try the other side of the boat. That was Jesus' advice. Throw your net on the other side of the boat. And just like Peter obeyed the first time when Jesus called him out on the water, and he was not afraid at first, Peter did just what he had asked and saw that he could do anything if God was with him. So when they had seen all the fish gathering in the net, it was time to pull the net up. It was time to harvest these fishies. It was time to bring them to shore and to count them up. To count up what this great miracle Jesus had done. 1, 2, 3 fishy, 4, 5, 6, 7 fishy more. 153. 153. That's how many fish Peter and his friends brought up. They couldn't catch one on their own. They couldn't catch one single fish, fishing all night long. And you know what? When Jesus told them where to fish, they found themselves excited again. Not about fishing. No, they weren't excited about that. In fact, Peter jumped in the water and he said, "It's you, Lord, it's you." Not like the first time when he asked, "Lord, is it you? And if it is, then I'll walk out there." No, he said, "It is you, Lord." And he jumped right into the water. That's right. He wasn't afraid. Apparently, Peter could swim. And even though the first time he got scared and was sinking down in the waves, Peter could swim. He swam right out there. He wanted to be right where the action was. Jesus in the water. Jesus making things happen. Jesus overcoming their fears. Jesus in their midst, providing food, giving them comfort, and wanting to spend time with them. "Have you anything to eat?" he said. What important words that Jesus would ask. Have you anything to eat? Because really, Jesus was wanting to show them he had the stuff to eat. He had what it took to get food. He had what it was that they needed. And so it was up to them to answer in a way that was truthful, to answer in a way that showed even that Jesus, you know all things, right? The same way that Jesus, when he would sit by the fire and ask Peter, "Peter, do you love me?" Remember, Peter got scared one time when Jesus was going to the cross and the girl who came up to him said, "You're one of his." The servant girl pointed out, "You're one of his disciples." And Peter said, "I don't even know him." And this was the first time that Peter and Jesus had seen each other again. And Jesus asked him, "Peter, do you love me?" And then Jesus told Peter, "Feed my lambs. Feed my sheep." Jesus asked Peter 3 times, "Do you love me?" Just like Peter had denied Jesus 3 times that he knew him. And all 3 times Peter answered, "I do. Jesus, I want to do what you ask me to do." And Jesus said, "Feed my sheep. Teach my people. Teach them about the Word of God. Teach them about me."